Good morning, and welcome to all of you for this, our third and final installation of the Hebron 101 series. This was a series that was conceived by John Thomas prior to his passing many moons ago, and we are so grateful to have the opportunity to continue his legacy of concern and care and witness for Palestine. We anticipate continuing this sort of educational series even more so now that we know what is going on in that region. Just very quickly, for those of you who are watching this at a later date, I am the Reverend Rebecca Seegers, the pastor and head of staff here at the Third Presbyterian Church. And in this third series, we are very, very blessed to have Hamid Qawasmeh. I hope I did not butcher your name too badly. Hamid and I actually, you want to tell us how to say it properly?
Well, Qawasmeh, good enough.
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. I don't know, for my American accent, but thank you. So Hamid and I had the blessing of meeting about this time last year when I was in Hebron. And we, Third Church, have participated in the work of his organization, Hebron International Resources Network, which was conceived a little more than a decade ago and sourced through an organization in Sweden. So he found international partners from the very beginning. And I'm very pleased that we have been one of those international partners in helping to make the difference that this organization does. HERN, as we affectionately call it here, has helped to build playgrounds, has helped to feed various communities, is really in the work of resourcing people who are struggling, even more so at this particular time. So I'm very grateful for Hamid for making the time to be with us today, and I will now send it off to you, and thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, dear, for actually arranging this. I'm deeply humbled actually of being present with you on this day to kind of look at the work that we are doing. Especially at this time of crisis. I'm very blessed to actually have the connection with the Third Church. We've been actually, for the last year, we've been working out very, very closely with a community that is called the Al Khair Bedouin community that has been definitely been at the eye of the storm in South Hebron Hills, as we are trying, especially after the ongoing war that took place starting on the 7th of October of this year. So just a small little brief introduction regarding our organization. Are called the Hebron International Resources Network, HERN for short. And this organization, I think, is very unlike other organizations that you guys have dealt with in the past. Our organization is basically not set up to become an NGO. My initial work is actually for the United Nations. Working with a number of other NGOs. That gave me the chance to look very closely on the makeup of these organizations as well as the effectiveness of these organizations. So we have been working with like UNICEF, we're working with another organization called Adwar that are officially NGOs, which means that they do have the kind of a setup of an NGO, which means that you have to have like a head of office, you're going to have a financial officer, you probably will have education officer, protection officer, layers that are associated with organizations, which, to be honest, as we've seen it, that a lot of the financing Better? Okay, great. All right. Yeah, so out of our own experiences with a lot of NGOs, we ended up seeing that that the layers that are being set up by these NGOs, having to have a board, having to have a head of office, having to have the financial officer, all these things, have actually rendered them, I wouldn't say useless, but to actually for them to be able to respond directly to the needs that are immediate and that are as expressed by the community has become very, very hard. They're not becoming very responsive to these needs because of these layers that has been put upon them to become an NGO. So from that point of view, we actually came in and decided as a default that we do not want to be an NGO. We do not want to actually to go into the whole series of having to write a mission statement and have to have a board of directors and having to have so many different layers that are going to be present in order for us to become an NGO, because we saw that this is going to really hit us in a place where we're not going to be able to respond as fast as possible. So by default, we decided that we do not want to be an NGO. We are a very, very flat organization, that we are registered only just for the sake of registration in Sweden. But seriously, we are only two people that are on the ground. Myself, which is totally volunteer. I don't get any financial, we don't get a salary for my work as basically the head of the organization. And we have only one other person who's basically kind of the field presence of Hearn, and he's the only one who's being paid. Other than that, we have no protection officer. We don't have a financial officer. We don't have a position of a head of office that which made us really, really responsive to the needs of the community. So that kind of a flat down shape of the organization made us a little bit more responsive. And the other thing that actually made us very kind of a quick to respond to the needs of the community is that we do not have a mandate. Like other organizations will be saying, okay, we are going to be working only on gender issues. Other organization will be saying that we're going to be working only on education issues. So that means that once they actually go into any kind of a community, they're going to be bound. They're going to be like a tunnel vision specifically for the mission that they have. So if their community will be able to come and say that, well, in order for us to actually to be able to live a little bit better in the face of all of these violations by the Israelis, we will need a water system. But when you go back to UNICEF, because they are only specifically working with children, for example, or with education, they probably will come and say, no, this is not what you need. What you really need is actually to have fun days for the kids, to have some sort of a psychosocial interventions, which it might be the case, but this is not what the community is expressing to you. The community is expressing to say that we do not have any water, and in order for us to be able to access water resources, we need to have a water system. So basically from us, we are at a top-down approach. We are actually down approach. We are that close to the community. The community will come and tell us that we want a water system. We will say, okay, we are going to get you a water system. Our mandate basically is actually to help the community as much as possible to meet their needs, the ones that are expressed by them, not us coming in from the top down telling them like, no, I think, because we are much more educated, because we know English, we know connections. No, actually what you need, what is best for you is this and that. We don't do that. We are really very, very humbled that the community is the one at the front line. They are the ones who are facing the policies of the occupation. They are the ones who are facing settler violence. And with that, they are in the best situation to actually to tell us what is it that they need. So with this, we ended up, we have an emailing list that we usually send out our accomplishments through that. We don't have Facebook. We don't have a web page, just because our line of work is very sensitive, to the point that we don't want everybody to actually get to know about them, because you'll know we will have some sort of a negative ramifications of that. So if you would like to actually to be on our emailing list, please just send me your email, and I'll be more than happy to get that. But through that emailing list, with the activities that you're going to be able to see, you will see that the projects that we have is very much varied. We do not have a specific sector that we are working on. So, for example, we pay for college students from all of these communities that are in Area C. We work only in Area C, not Area A or B, just Area C, because that's where the kind of the pressure of the occupation is most likely happening in those areas. So we pay for about 80 students to go to college from these communities, and specifically girls. The community is actually, we are not telling them that that we pay for colleges, so send your kids there. No, it actually comes from them. A lot of them will say, now that our kids have done with high school, we want to be able to give them more education on the university level. So please, if you can help out with this, we'll be more than happy to do it. That we'll be grateful to have that. So we have 80 students, and about, I would say, 75 of them are actually women that are attending college, because we are paying about 70% of their tuition to colleges throughout Bethlehem and Hebron governorates. So we have about at least 7 universities that we are paying partially for these students to actually to go to college to. We pay for school transportation for at least 6 communities in the South Hebron Hills. We pay salaries for kindergarten teachers in areas that are very, very close to settlements. What else? We have right now a community called El Ganub, which we've been working with for the past 5 years. Unfortunately, they have been forcibly displaced. The settlers of the settlement of Asfar have actually managed to, after the war of Gaza, to raid the community and set all of their tents ablaze. So we ended up having to work with this community now to reestablish it in another location, unfortunately, that they've deemed to be appropriate for them. So now we are working with them to provide them with about 9 tents in order for them to reestablish themselves as a close-knit community. What else? These days we are, the community of Al Khair, which is very, very special to you guys as well, because you have worked with us on this community, at least trying to provide food parcels for them, as well as a Ramadan breakfast through last year. Now that community is actually located very close to the settlement of Carmel, which is, you're talking about 10 meters away from them. The community is a refugee community to begin with. They were living next to the Negev. In 1948 took place. So they were pushed into the city of Yatta, where they actually ended up buying the land. It cost them about 100 camels, which is at that point in 1948 and 1950. That's a lot of money. Still the same here. But at least they ended up buying the land, which makes it, much more defendable, that we can actually defend it to the point that we actually own this land, rather than if you hear about Khan al-Ahmar, they don't own the land. And this is why they are a little bit more weaker in terms of defense. While Al-Khair is right there next to the settlement of Carmel came in 1982. So it's 30 years after the establishment of the community, but now they are actually being surrounded with from all areas with that settlement that makes it very, very difficult to actually to live in that area. So because of that, the vulnerability of that community, we are working very, very closely with them for the past 20 years, not only these days. So these days, they are facing nightly raids because, especially after October 7th, in a very obvious attempt that the settlers are trying to basically cause a lot of harassment for them to the point that they will be packing up and leaving. But these guys are very dedicated to their land, and this is why we want to work up with them. So through the third church, we actually distributed food parcels for them, I think last week or maybe 10 days ago, in cooperation with you guys. And during Ramadan, we actually had a breaking the fast meal that was also funded by the wonderful souls that you are. Now, their request is actually to have a medical emergency center. Now, what we have seen from our work as HERN, as my official work as well from the United Nations, is that there has been a huge increase in settler violence in the South Hebron Hills. And we have it on daily basis that we are recording settlers that are actually using burning houses, having raids against the Palestinians, breaking all of their belongings, and even sometimes stealing some sheep in a very concerted effort by the settlers in order for them to push whatever community in the South Hebron Hills, including Khair, out of their current location in an attempt to take it over. Now that actually did increase the chances of having to have injuries, and maybe sometimes, God forbids, killing incidents in the entire South Hebron Hills. So once we were talking with the United Nations, we're talking with local organizations and what have you, it turns out that actually the next best step is actually to create an emergency center in the South Hebron Hills, located in the village of Khair. Because the fear right now is that there are so many flying checkpoints, there are so many settler harassment, that God forbids if something happens very seriously, the possibility of having to actually to transfer the injured from Masafir Yatta or from Khair or whatever to actually to go to Yatta, which is the main city where medical services can be provided, is going to be very, very difficult. It's going to take a lot of time before that ambulance will come in from Yatta, the main city, into these communities, which is about 25 minutes away, in order for them to bring the injured back to Yatta with all of these settlers and military checkpoints in between, that it will be too late for that injured. So this is why we ended up actually in cooperation with the village council, in cooperation with even the Ministry of Health, getting them to actually to allocate a space where an emergency center can actually be allocated. So the village council already talked with the ministry, and the ministry actually sent us a letter saying that in the case that you are going to be able to establish an emergency center, then the Ministry of Health would have no problem of running the show after it was established. And that was very, very important, because this is something that we do even with our schools that we are building, is that we have no problem with actually building the structure, but we need to have some sort of an authority that will pay for the doctors, pay for the salaries, pay for any kind of medical needs and supplies that might arise. So now that we got that from the ministry, they told us that, okay, we're running the show after you establish it. So establishing that is going to need you to have this type of equipment for X-ray, this type of equipment for the laboratory, this type and this type and this type. Give us a whole big list of us as a local NGO or a local, even the village council, that you have to provide that first before I can actually run the show afterwards. So once we actually looked at the whole thing, it was costly. It was about $30,000 to pick up all of these materials. So we are trying as much as possible. We did not, and this is a good thing about our organization, is that we do not wait for a project to be accepted by whatever donor in order for us to actually to start in the process of doing it. And this is where our difference with the NGOs happens, because other NGOs, you actually will have to have a project proposal that is going to be given to some entity, and that they're going to have to go and look over it, and then they will say, okay, tweak this, tweak that, send it back, and then after they will have an agreement on it, we're going to have to be approved by the board of directors, and then you're going to have to wait for the money to come in before you can actually start purchasing the equipment. We don't do that. Alhamdulillah, we don't do that. We identify that there is a need for this community to have a medical center. The guy that we are actually working with that is supposed to be providing the equipment for us, which is alhamdulillah, hopefully by Thursday, we will have the equipment done and ready. He knows us. We worked with them for a long period of time, to the point that he says, fine, go ahead. We will bring the materials in. You don't have to pay me right now. I know at one point of the time in down the road, within the next month or so, you are going to be able to pay me. So I trust you. I trust that that the money is going to be provided. I don't know when, but that is not going to prevent me as a supplier from getting you the medical equipment that is needed. So, and that, alhamdulillah, goes a lot with a lot of our suppliers. That, for example, when we ended up with the food parcels from in cooperation with you guys, we did not wait for the money, the $1,100 to actually to come through before we can actually go ahead and purchase the food parcels. Once we got a tentative okay from you guys, we decided that's okay, fine. We're just going to go ahead and bring the materials, because they are under a big siege at that point, that we wanted to actually to bring in the materials as soon as possible. So we did not wait for the money to come in. The people that we are dealing with trust us enough to the point that they say, okay, fine, we will do this, and then you're going to be paying us at a later stage. So this is the same thing that happened with the medical supplier. Inshallah, we're going to be able by Thursday be able to actually to get the materials, and hopefully after that, Monday or Tuesday, that we will be able to supply that for the clinic, so that we can make it as soon to work as soon as possible. So this is basically, again, in a nutshell, what we are, the way that we are made. This is the philosophy behind the way that we're working. Again, we are very appreciative of the partnership that we have with you guys, and hopefully is going to continue in the near future. I'm just aware of the timing, so I'm just wanna just maybe give a little bit more time for questions, and so I don't want to hold you back too much. Thanks.
Offering an opportunity for questions. Do you have questions that you'd like to bring to him? Yes, Steve.
Wonder how many volunteers you have working with you to enable all these projects to happen.
Volunteers on the ground, we have, as I said, just myself and Islam, my other colleague. However, the trick is in the name of the organization. We are a network of people. So usually that, on the ground, sometimes we have, especially during the summer, we will have an uptick in the number of volunteers on the ground that actually come and be with us all the time. But for the most part, for the 11 months of the year, we're depending on the network of people who are mostly in the States as well as in the UK, and actually even in Sweden, in Norway, in Brazil, Australia, that they're actually helping us out through financing. Usually we would say, okay, we are going to be doing this and this and that, or actually this is in the process of doing them, and they will be, nice enough to actually to say, and trustworthy enough to say that, okay, here's $100, $500, and whatever, so that we will be able to do our work. So most of our people that are actually outside of Palestine, who are trying to actually to support the work that we do on the ground.
I note that you have your hand up, but when you spoke before, you're having that chipmunk voice thing happen. So if you could type your question into the chat, that would be helpful because we cannot understand you when you speak. While Betty's having a chance to do that, I wonder, Hamid, would you explain, you talked about how you only help people in Area C, and I know there are many people here who know what areas A, B, and C are, but I would imagine there are some who do not. So would you explain A, B, and C, please?
Yeah. So area, it's the fallout of the Oslo Agreement and the Oslo peace process, where they ended up having to classify the areas as area A, B, and C, with the hope that, at the end of the day, that all of them will become area A. So basically in the West Bank, the kind of a philosophy behind the classification was that, yes, we are in a peace process. Yes, down the road, maybe we as the Israelis, we're going to be able to give you the entire West Bank to become, along with Gaza, to become the state of Palestine. But we cannot give that to you all at once, because you still have the issues of Jerusalem, you still have the issues of right of return, you still have the issues of settlements, very, very thorny issues that if we decided to actually to go head on and actually work with them, the whole process will unveil, and then we're not going to be able to get anywhere. So we're going to give you parts. Let's see how that works out, and then if that works out very well, then we will give you additional parts and what have you. So Area A basically is where the Palestinians have full control in terms of security and social services. So they are the ones who are having the policing, the intelligence, the national forces, and what have you. At the same time, they are the ones who are providing schooling, ministry of and health services, municipal services, and what have you. So Area A is basically where the Palestinians are sovereign. And this is only about 18% of the West Bank is right now classified as Area A. And this is where, like, the city center of Bethlehem is classified as Area A, city center of Nablus is Area A, Jenin is the same. So this is only about 18%. Now Area B is where the Palestinians lose one arm of that control, which is the security. So they are allowed to provide social services in terms of education and health and municipality, whatever, but their police and their army is not supposed to be there. It is under the security is Israeli, basically. And that's only 22% of the West Bank. So Area A and Area B is about 40%, the 18 and the 22, where the Palestinians have some sort of a control, is only 40%, while Area C, the Palestinians have no control whatsoever. The security is in the hands of the Israelis, and the services are supposed to be in the hands of the Israelis. And that's 60% of the West Bank, where all of the settlements are located, all of the closed military areas are located, all of the nature reserves are located. 60% of the West Bank is in the hands of the Israelis, and we have only about 5% of the Palestinian population is located in that area, in C. So this is why there's a lot of pressure on them so that they can move out and go to Area A and Area B, where the Israelis can take over Area C. And this is where we are working specifically, is to support those 5% of the population so that they will stay on their land, so that the Israelis would not take the rest of the 60% of the West Bank.
And if it's my understanding that the majority of that is farmland and is is where most of the Israeli settlements are illegally located.
Exactly. And this is where the Palestinians who are living in those areas are herders, as well as Bedouins. They need to actually to have much open space in order for them to get their sheep to graze and what have you. But this is where, the Israelis are trying to get them out as fast as possible in the hope that they're going to annex that 60% into the state of Israel.
Also diminishes the potential for a two-state solution.
There you go.
So I note that Jim Tiefenthal has a question up for you, Hamid. It says you've connected with a nascent, a startup Rochester Hebron friendship group aiming to connect person to person, for example, teachers to teachers, etc. Do you have a suggestion for moving this project forward?
Not at the moment. However, having said that, I'm more than happy to explore any kind of a potential for this. We have plenty of organizations here on the ground. It does not have to be Hearn, but we can actually identify, if I get to understand a little bit deeper this initiative, I will definitely be able to find the most suitable partner here on the ground, be it person to person or organization to organization. Alhamdulillah, we've been working on the ground for at least 20 years. And in Hebron and in Bethlehem, and that created enough trust between us and the local community that I can identify who is going to be suited best for this endeavor.
Thank you so much. Betty Iwan has asked, on the subject of what's happening with the war right now, what is the leadership of the Palestinians able to do to protect its people?
Leadership is zero. There is not much hope or trust in the Palestinian leadership in Ramallah these days. Their stance and their reactions is weaker than weak, and not a whole lot of Palestinians are looking up to them to make any kind of a difference. Even with the negotiations that are going regarding freeing the hostages or having to have a truce or stop the bombings and what have you, nobody is believing that they have enough weight that they can actually tip the ongoing political negotiations one way or the other. So this is why, to be honest, there's been a lot of pressure on us as Hearn regarding having to provide some of the very basic needs of the communities that we're dealing with. But on the political level, nobody is kidding themselves that the Palestinian Authority based in Ramallah has enough clout that they will be able to affect one way or the other the ongoing peace, the ongoing negotiations to stop the war in Gaza.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes, Joan.
I was wondering, now that you're in the situation, if the tightening of what's already the occupation is on a daily basis worse and worse, and where the settlers are doing the raids, do you see the IDF ever intervening in that situation or standing back and just letting that happen?
Actually, is the situation, the kind of the intensity of the situation has become much more because now the IDF have ended up calling their reserve, about 450,000 Israelis that have been called in order for them to support the war effort in Gaza. That meant that all of the kind of the soldiers, or let's say the professional soldiers, quote unquote, that have been actually being removed from the West Bank and then being directed to both the north because of Hezbollah threat, as well to the war effort in Gaza. That has created a gap in kind of the security for the settlements and what have you, to the point now, in order for them to cover that gap, they ended up establishing a battalion made of settlers. in order for them to actually to provide the protection for these settlements, they brought the settlers from those settlements and actually gave them a uniform of the IDF. Now they become a reserve that because they're not very well trained on combat or whatever, so that the well trained soldiers were placed in Gaza, and the kind of the mission to provide security for the settlements have been given to the settlers themselves. So basically, in the past, before the 7th of October, we will be having a settler who's going to be coming in, harass the Palestinians, or preventing them from grazing in one specific field or the other. So you will call the IDF will come in, and the police, and one way or the other be a buffer zone between the Palestinian herders as well as the settlers. Just basically makes it as a closed military area. The settler goes, the Palestinian goes, and there's no hostility, let's say, in one sense or the other. But now, after the 7th, those IDF has been allocated to Gaza, and now the settlers themselves are the ones who are supposed to be providing security for the settlements, which meant that beforehand they were not able of actually carrying out the attacks as comfortable as they want. Now that they are official, now that they actually have guns, now that they have the suit of the IDF, now they are actually trying to carry out the attacks that they could not have done that beforehand. And every time that you call the police or the army, they will say, we're not interested in this. This is a state of war. And then and these guys are IDF, so you're supposed to be abiding by the orders that they have. And this is why we saw an uptick in settler violence, because we count these guys who are as a reserves in IDF uniform as settlers, not as IDF. It's settlers who are in IDF uniform. So, and this is why that actually gave them the chance to do whatever that they want without any kind of with full impunity.
Thank you, Hamid. That's distressing to hear. I saw that Deb had a question.
Yes, and it was kind of answered, so I'm sad.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Beth.
So what do you see as the most urgent way in which we can help?
Well, the issue has been, and this is something that we've been always, seeing from the field, is that having to actually to have, after the 7th, all of the people who used to actually to go and work inside of Israel now are not working. So all of the workers who actually had some sort of a source of income from there are not working anymore. The Palestinian Authority, usually they will end up having to give salaries, and usually for the past 3 or 4 years, it's been only 80% of the salary because of the Israelis would not give them the entire amount. This month, the Israelis said that we are going to give you some money, but that money is going to, which is supposed to be given on monthly basis, but that money is going to be deducted from it. All of the Palestinians who are on the PA, on the Palestinian Authority payroll that are in Gaza, because we don't want to pay anything for Gaza. So they basically ended up halving the what is supposed to be given to the Palestinian Authority. And the Palestinian Authority said, no, we don't want to, if you are not going to give it to us full, we're not going to accept it. So far, we are on the 19th of November, and none of the workers who are working inside of Israel got paid, as well as the Palestinian, the employees of the Palestinian Authority have not been paid as well. So there is a huge cash problem in the whole West Bank, actually, not only here. So from your perspective, maybe if we can have some sort of a lobbying. I mean, the lobbying is of the U.S. government to probably push the Israelis to stop ceasefire, to allow more aid to go into Gaza, as well as to actually to provide the needed budget for the Palestinian Authority, so that they can actually give out salaries for the Palestinians. Now we are talking about 43 days that a lot of these communities, like Al Khair, for example, did not have any cash coming in. and they are actually, sometimes they will look at us as HERN to provide, some sort of a money for them. We are paying salaries. We are paying for the school transportation, for example. We're paying for that, and we are going to continue to pay for it, even though school is not running. But this is cash that needs to be actually inputted into the community. We are trying to give them some advanced, money that they will have to repay once the salary is in. But I don't think we are gonna give them the money, but we're not gonna accept it back. So it is that kind of a cash flow to the community to make it a little bit easier for them. We ended up doing the food parcels just so that they don't have to go and buy some more. So these are, we're talking about the very, very basic needs for the communities. And this is what we've seen us as shifting. We always have our vision as per the request of the community is more developmental. That we're going to be building a school, we're going to be building a kindergarten, we're going to be building a water system. So in the long run, that will allow the community to thrive or to meet its basic needs. But now, ever since October 7th, we are actually trying to meet the very basic needs, meaning water and food. Basically, that's what we've been requested to have. So we give parcels for Al Khair. We are going to be going one for the old city of Hebron very soon. We done one to Al Ganub and Kisan. So this is what have been requested from us. And again, we are always trying to meet the needs of the communities. So if you guys think that another food parcel distribution for Al Khair will be possible, that would be really great.
Thank you, Hamid. I do want you to know, Hamid, that our session voted last week, and we did send a letter out to our congregation, both decrying the violence from Hamas and the violence from Israel's retaliation, as well as calling for a ceasefire, a humanitarian ceasefire, and we sent that out to our congregation as well as to President Biden, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, our 2 senators, and our representatives. So that has gone out. Although, so we are trying on that end to cry out for humanitarian causes. Any other questions? Yeah, Deb.
Do you get all the money that people donate, or does somebody try to intercept your projects?
No, alhamdulillah, we've been doing this for 20 years. So far things, sometimes they will ask questions, sometimes, why is this for? But sometimes it got delayed for about 4 or 5 days. But alhamdulillah, so far, nobody has asked deeper questions, and things are doing very well. In the States, as you know, that we are partnering with Nonviolence International, and you can actually get tax exemptions from donation there. And we get monthly basis, we get transfers from them as to make sure that things are met. And that the needs are being met, basically.
Other questions? Well, I cannot thank you enough, Hamid, for being here with us today. Our hearts are with you and with the people you serve. I wish there was more we could do. I think we all feel very helpless here, but we're grateful for your presence with us, particularly in this very challenging time. For you to take your time to be with us is greatly appreciated. So thank you, and we will continue our partnership together.
Well, thank you for arranging that, and arranging this meeting is good. At least this is the least we can do, is have Zoom face-to-face kind of a meeting. Inshallah, when things calm down, either that you'll be more than welcomed in Hebron, and we'll see if I can travel to New York one of these days, inshallah, to meet you in person. It will be an honor for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.